In today's video, we will be deriving the quadratic formula. And so, just to start, we're going to write out our quadratic equation, which is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. And to get the quadratic equation, and to know we actually did get the quadratic equation, we want it to look something like x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So to begin, what we're going to do is we're going to rewrite this down here as ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. We're going to divide both sides by a. So we have ax squared divided by a, bx divided by a, and c divided by a, and 0 divided by a. 0 divided by a is just 0, so we shouldn't really worry about it. So this would become x squared plus bx over a plus c over a. So these are both x terms, so we can group them together in parentheses, and we can see that this c over a almost acts like a constant. So we can subtract it from both sides, and remember our right side is currently 0. So after subtracting c over a from both sides, what we are left with is x squared plus b over ax equals negative c over a. Now what we're going to do is pretty similar to what we did when completing the square, which is b over 2a squared. And we're going to add this, whatever we get from this, to both sides of our equation. So we get b, which is b over a, over 2 times a, and our a value was simply just, could it be assumed to be 1, because a divided by a cancels out to 1, because anything divided by itself is 1. And so now we have b over a times 1 over 2, because dividing by 2 is the same thing as multiplying by 1/2. Whatever we get from here, we're going to square it. So essentially, when multiplying these fractions, our numerator is multiplied by our numerator, so 1 times b is just b. A, which is our denominator, is just being multiplied by our 2, which is our other denominator, and a times 2 is just 2a. This is going to be squared in order to give us b squared over 4a squared. So b squared is simply just b times b, which is our numerator, over 2a times 2a. 2 times 2 is 4. A times a is a squared. So we have 4a squared. So that is our resulting fraction. We're going to add this b squared over 4a squared to both sides. So that leaves us with x squared plus bax plus b squared over 4a squared minus c over a. This is going to equal negative c over a plus our b squared over 4a squared. Since we added it to our right side, we have to add it to our left side. So then get plus b squared over 4a squared. Now we still have our left side as being the same. X squared plus b over ax plus b squared over 4a squared equals, now we see that our first fraction and our second fraction have two different denominators, and in order to add fractions together, the denominators must be the same. So what we have to do is we have to multiply by 4a to this first fraction. So 4a times our numerator and 4a times our denominator. And so simply, after multiplying negative c over a times 4 over a over 4 over a, we are left with negative 4ac over 4a squared. And so just to rewrite our right side, we are left with b squared over 4a squared minus 4ac over 4a squared. If you remember what the quadratic formula is, it's negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And if you look, inside of our square root sign, we have b squared over minus 4ac. And here we have b squared minus 4ac in our numerator. And since we have the same denominators, we can now combine them, which gives us our right side as being b squared minus 4ac all over 4a squared. We can simplify our left side to x plus b over 2a. And we're going to square that whole parentheses. We did this because this is now a perfect trinomial. And to get b over 2a, we did b squared over 4a squared, and we took the square root of our numerator and our denominator. So the square root of b squared is just b. The square root of 4a squared is just 2a, because you can individually take the square root of 4, which is 2, and the square root of a squared, which is just a. So that gives us b over 2a. So now we have x plus b over 2a, and remember, we're going to square it, and that is going to be equal to b squared minus 4ac over 4a squared. Now, we're going to get rid of these squares. So we're going to take the square root of both sides, so we have square root of x plus b over 2a squared. And then we also take the square root of our right side, which was b squared minus 4ac over 4a squared, which leaves us with, take the square root of our left side, which leaves us with x plus b over 2a. We're just getting rid of this squared. Then we take the square root of our right side, which leaves us with the square root of b squared minus 4ac. And the square root, remember, of 4 is equal to 2. The square root of a squared is equal to a. So our denominator comes out to 2a. Now, remember, again, the quadratic formula is negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Now, we're really close to that, as you can see. We have our b squared minus 4ac, we have our 2a's. We want to get this x by itself. So what we're going to do is we're going to subtract b over 2a from both sides. So that gives us x equals b, negative b over 2a. And our denominators are the same, so it'll just continue throughout the whole fraction, 2a. And then, remember, whenever you take the square root of a number, you can take the positive or the negative square root. So in this case, we're going to write it as positive or negative. And then our numerator is going to stay the same as being b squared minus 4ac. And now, as you can see, we have the quadratic formula. We have successfully derived the quadratic formula from ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Hope this video helps, and good luck on your quiz.